Islam, one of the most influential and divided religions, spread rapidly around the world, sprouting from the city of Mecca on the Arabian Peninsula. This religion is one of the most widely practiced on earth today. Islam was a very impactful religion in terms of its influence and culture spread. This map shows the original region of Islam and major Islamic countries. Islam basically embodies monotheism. The only God is God, and this concept is taken very seriously, even more seriously than in other monotheistic religions, such as Judaism or Christianity.
Islam is one of the most popular and interesting religions on earth. Islam means surrender. Surrendering to the will of Allah is a crucial part of Islam. The central faith of Islam is that the Prophet Muhammad is God's final word on earth. The declaration that every Muslim takes Shahada proclaims that there is no God but God and Muhammad is his prophet. The followers of Islam are called the Muslims. The Muslims believe that they are following in the same tradition as Jews, Moses, Abraham, and Jesus were the most important prophets before Muhammad. Muslims, Jews, and Christians shared a common God. The Quran even discussed the Virgin Mary.
Muhammad was born in the late 6th century ACE, according to Muslim sources. The precise year was about 570 ACE, and he was born in Mecca. He was an orphan, his father having died before his birth, and his mother and grandmother died when he was very young. His uncle taught him the family business.
Islam finds its roots in Muhammad's teachings. Born in the city of Mecca, Muhammad began his mission as a prophet in the year 610 AD when he received a vision from God. The voice in the vision told him to preach, to show others Allah's word. He began preaching in about 613 AD, initially only to his closest companions. The followers of Muhammad were not welcomed in Mecca because most of the people in Mecca were sinners and worshipped idols. So, Muhammad and his followers moved to the city of Medina, which became the center of the great Islamic civilization. This migration from Mecca to Medina was called the Hijra. Today, the followers of Islam are distributed around the world, and Muhammad's teachings are documented worldwide. The major split of Islam is between Shias and Sunnis. More than 1.5 billion Muslims are Sunnis. In the Middle East, Sunnis make up 90% of the populations in countries such as Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. Sunnis regard themselves as the orthodox branch of Islam. The Shia constitute about 10% of all Muslims. They claim that Ali was the successor of the Muslim community after the death of Prophet Muhammad, and that God chose Ali to rule after Muhammad, not Abu Bakr. The Shiites also believe that Aisha, who is Abu Bakr's daughter and Muhammad's favorite wife, was dishonorable and committed adultery, while Sunnis call her the exonerated. Before Muhammad, the Middle East was comprised of many tribes, the richest and most powerful of which was the Quraysh. The Quraysh controlled affairs in Mecca and acted as custodians of the Kaaba. Because of the Kaaba, Mecca was a major trading city and a significant city in general. The 5 so-called pillars of Sunni Islam are prayer, which is called salah. That must be done 5 times per day. Pilgrimage, which is called Hajj, must be done 1 time in every Muslim's life. Fasting during Ramadan, which is called Saum, charity to the poor, which is called Zakat, and declaration of faith, which is called Shahada. The Hajj is a pilgrimage Muslims must make at least once in their lifetime. They go to Mecca and circle around the Kaaba, all in the same white robe, because whether someone is a peasant or a king, all are equal in the eyes of gods. Shiites add jihad to this list of 5 pillars, which means holy war, which is to say, a war against non-believers, destroying and changing what does not conform to their religion. This is why we call some Muslim terrorists jihadists. Most Muslims, however, are Sunnis. The root of Sunni comes from Sunnah, which means tradition, Islamic tradition. Sunni Islam is thought of as more traditional by its followers. The Muslim version of the Bible, The Quran is the absolute word of God. There is only one version recorded by Muhammad, unlike the Bible, which has many contradicting versions depending on the sect of the religion. The Quran is considered sacred and must always be placed at the top of a stack of books. Destroying the Quran is committing sacrilege. When a dispute arises, splitting Muslims, first they turn to the Quran. If the dispute is not addressed in the Quran, they turn to Hadith and Sunnah. Hadith are recordings of quotes from Muhammad. Many were invented long after Muhammad's death because of political aspirations, but some may be traced back, in fact, directly to the Prophet. Sunnah is Islamic tradition. A Muslim house of worship is called a mosque. A mosque is open every day of the week. Friday is an important day for Muslims, and it is more significant than any other day of the week, as it is the day that Muslims gather together to pray in the congregation. Around the year 610 AD, Muhammad was given a vision from God. He was told to teach the world of God's teachings. He conveyed the message to his closest accomplices, then spread the word of Allah far and wide. Meccan leaders persecuted Muslims, which were Muhammad and his followers. They even incited violence and heavily criticized Muhammad's teachings. As time went on, many of Muhammad's followers died, including his first wife, Khadija. Eventually, Muhammad and his followers, now called Muslims, evacuated to an oasis city named Yathrib. Yathrib grew and eventually became known as Medina. Medina became a looming threat towards Mecca's dominance. The Quraysh rulers of Mecca were very worried about Medina's rising power. This resulted in tensions rising along with Medina's power, causing many battles. Eventually, a treaty was made between Muslims and the Quraysh, and Muhammad returned to Mecca, although Medina was still named the City of the Prophet and was still a prominent Muslim landmark. Muhammad preached to Meccans and others. Islam became widely popular. The Kaaba idols were demolished. Today, the Kaaba is an Islamic pilgrimage site, and Muhammad's teachings are preserved in the Quran. After Muslims conquered the entire Arabian Peninsula, Muhammad unexpectedly fell ill and died. Abu Bakr was appointed caliph, although Muhammad had not appointed a clear successor. Abu Bakr was the father of Muhammad's favorite wife, Aisha. After Abu Bakr, there were 3 more prominent caliphs. They were named Umar, Uthman, and Ali. The first 4 caliphs after Muhammad are referred to as the 4 rightly guided caliphs. A succession of caliphs known as the Umayyad dynasty followed Ali's death, after a civil war known as Fitna. The Umayyad dynasty moved the capital to Damascus, the capital of present-day Syria. After the Umayyad dynasty came the Abbasid dynasty. During the Abbasid rule, Islamic culture flourished. This was the time when many great works of literature were written. For instance, 1001 Nights. Baghdad became a center of learning, literature, and art. Eventually, the Ottoman Empire took over, ending the Abbasid dynasty.
Today, Islamic practices influence the world's culture, ideas, and beliefs. The world's second most popular religion started with only one person. In the modern world, Islam has
affected politics in many nations that practice it, and even nations that do not practice it. The 2 major groups of Islam are different in beliefs and therefore uphold different political opinions. Islam plays a major role in politics, for instance. In many Middle Eastern nations, it even is politics. However, when religion and politics become too closely intertwined, the result is often authoritarian. In some Islamic countries, disobeying God's law can result in the death penalty. This is definitely not necessarily positive, as it can lead to persecution and segregation. Only Muslims are even allowed to visit many cities such as Mecca and Medina, major Muslim cities. Extremist Sunnis terrorize much of Europe in the name of Allah. The Quran is exactly as it is written, only real in Arabic. It is the greatest and final revelation of God. Islam fully influences the non-Islamic world. For example, in Europe and America, political candidates promised to let in or turn down alleged refugees because of uncertainty over whether they are legitimate refugees or simply terrorists looking for a way to get into developed nations. In countries that practice it, Islam drastically changes the way people perceive and see the world as. For instance, in Islam, there is no natural law. This pencil, that only fell to the ground because God willed it to fall to the ground. In conclusion, Islam is a very impactful religion, and it is one of the most interesting in the world, and also one of the most popular in the world. We're excited